Ladies and gentlemen, let me be blunt. Most people don't ruin their lives with a single catastrophic choice. They destroy them gradually, one compromise at a time, one denial of truth, one surrender to comfort over responsibility. And nowhere is this more tragically clear than in the lives of many older adults. Regret is one of the most misunderstood emotions in the human experience. People are taught to avoid it, to bury it, to live with no regret, as if regret were some kind of defect in character. But that is a lie. Regret, when examined honestly and without self-deception, is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of moral intelligence. It's the mind's way of pointing back at a moment in time and saying, "That was wrong. You could have done better." And ignoring that voice is one of the surest paths to repeating the same failures over and over again, even if the form changes. Older adults, in particular, often try to smother their regrets under layers of nostalgia or distraction. Some turn to sentimentality, glorifying the past to avoid facing what they didn't do, what they missed, or how they hurt people. Others numb themselves with comfort, routines, television, trivial concerns, anything but the hard work of reflection. And yet, buried in regret is the clearest possible roadmap to personal growth. If you feel regret over something, it means your soul is still working. It means there's an unresolved tension between who you were and who you could have been. That gap contains potential if you're willing to confront it. But here's the trap. People confuse regret with guilt and shame. Regret says, "I should have done better." Guilt says, "I'm a bad person." Shame says, "I'm not worthy of trying again." And when people let guilt and shame take over, they shut down. They stop growing. That's not what regret is meant to do. Regret is not your executioner, it's your teacher. It draws a red circle around a specific part of your life and says, "Look here, this matters." Maybe it's the child you neglected, the apology you never gave, the talent you never developed, the truth you refused to speak. Those regrets are not just memories. They are warnings, and if heeded, invitations to live differently. The older you get, the more temptation there is to pretend it's too late to fix anything. But that's another lie. You may not get to change the outcome, but you can change your understanding. You can write the letter. You can make the call. You can tell the truth. And even if the other person is no longer there, the act of confronting your regret reshapes your own soul. It realigns you with reality. It helps you become the person you failed to be. And that, ultimately, is what redemption looks like. Not perfection, but honesty, courage, and the will to learn from the pain. Responsibility is not a burden. It's the very thing that gives life structure, meaning, and vitality. It's easy to forget this, especially in a world that celebrates freedom as the absence of obligation. But freedom without responsibility quickly decays into chaos. A life without responsibility may seem comfortable at first glance, but beneath that surface lies a profound emptiness. When people abandon responsibility, what they're really doing is stepping away from the one thing that makes their existence significant. And what replaces it? Leisure, often, convenience, days that look the same, but without responsibility, without something or someone depending on you. There's nothing to aim at, no reason to get out of bed beyond habit, and that's when the soul begins to drift. It's not that work or parenting or contribution was always joyful, but it forced structure onto chaos. It gave people a reason to bear suffering, to improve themselves, to show up even when it was hard. That kind of discipline produces depth of character, and its absence leaves a hollow space. Responsibility connects you to the world in a way that nothing else does. When you say, "This is my problem," or "I'll take care of it," or "I won't look away," you're placing yourself between chaos and order. You're engaging with reality on its own terms, and in doing so, you grow. You become someone others can rely on, not because you're perfect, but because you're anchored. Taking responsibility, whether it's for your own health, your family, your community, or even your past, binds you to something larger than your moment-to-moment pleasure. That's where real pride is born, not from accomplishments alone, but from knowing that you've carried a burden that mattered. Avoiding responsibility might feel like a relief at first, especially when you're tired, but long-term, it starves the spirit. It leads to disconnection from people, from purpose, and ultimately from yourself. The human psyche isn't built for endless escape. It's built for striving, and striving requires a target. That target is responsibility. It could be as small as taking care of a garden, or as large as guiding a family through hardship. But in every case, the act of taking it on strengthens you. It gives you something to serve, and service, rightly understood, is where meaning begins. Responsibility doesn't crush you. It builds you. It calls you upward. It invites you to become someone worth being. Isolation is not merely a physical condition. It's a psychological and spiritual erosion that occurs quietly over time. It doesn't start with dramatic disconnection. It begins with missed calls that are never returned, invitations politely declined, or the quiet retreat from social spaces that once felt energizing. Many older adults slide into isolation not because they want to be alone, but because withdrawing is easier than confronting the discomfort of change, aging, or vulnerability. But make no mistake, isolation corrodes the human being from the inside out. We are social creatures. Our brains, our emotions, our very sense of self are shaped and regulated through interaction with others. When that interaction fades, we don't just become lonely. We begin to fragment. Our thoughts spiral more easily. Our perspectives shrink. We start to confuse our internal monologue for truth because no one is there to challenge it or balance it out. The echo chamber of the isolated mind is a dangerous place, especially when regret, fear, or bitterness is allowed to fester unchecked. Without others to mirror us, reality itself becomes distorted. What makes this even more tragic is that isolation often masquerades as peace. People tell themselves they're just enjoying their own company, that they don't need anyone anymore, that they've outgrown the drama of relationships. But that's not peace. That's resignation. That's the voice of someone who's been hurt, who's tired, or who's afraid of not belonging. And instead of confronting those fears, they retreat. But in retreating, they rob themselves of the very thing that could heal them: human connection. Relationships aren't easy, especially as we grow older. Friends pass away, families become complicated, pride or shame gets in the way of reconnection. But the difficulty of maintaining relationships does not make them any less essential. In fact, it's that very difficulty that makes them meaningful. When you choose to stay connected, to listen, to forgive, to reach out again and again, you're participating in something deeply human. You're choosing not to disappear. Isolation also dulls your sense of purpose. When no one relies on you, and when you rely on no one, your days begin to feel weightless. You may keep busy, but you are unanchored. It's the presence of others, those who challenge you, support you, and need you, that reminds you you're part of something larger. To be seen, heard, and needed is not optional. Without that, your life begins to shrink, not just in what you do, but in who you are. And the tragedy is, by the time many realize this, they've already spent years vanishing slowly into the quiet. Comfort is one of the most seductive lies we tell ourselves. It whispers that we've earned our rest, that we deserve to take it easy, that struggle is for the young and ambitious. And on the surface, there's truth in that. Rest is necessary. Recovery is important. But comfort, when pursued as a lifestyle, doesn't soothe you. It softens you. It makes you forget that human beings are not built for prolonged stillness. We're meant to stretch, to strive, to overcome friction. Without that, something essential begins to rot from within. Older adults are particularly vulnerable to the trap of comfort. After years of hard work, raising families or building careers, the desire to relax becomes overwhelming. The routines settle in, the TV stays on, the days blur together, and before long, the fire that once demanded more from life starts to flicker out. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's slow, quiet, and easy to miss. But what's happening is real. When you choose comfort over challenge, you gradually lose the sharpness of your mind, the strength of your body, and the resilience of your spirit. What makes comfort so dangerous is that it feels good while it destroys you. It doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like rest. But comfort, when disconnected from purpose, becomes a form of sedation. It numbs the instincts that drive you to grow. It lulls you into a state where the days are painless but meaningless, where nothing hurts but nothing matters. You stop trying new things. You stop asking hard questions. You stop telling the truth, especially to yourself. And all of it is justified by the belief that you've earned it. But the truth is, life doesn't stop demanding more from you just because you've aged. The challenges may shift, but the responsibility to engage remains. Growth doesn't end when youth does. You're not finished simply because you're older. And the longer you choose ease over effort, the harder it becomes to reawaken the parts of yourself that crave depth, risk, and purpose. Comfort should be a reward, not a goal. It should be the pause between challenges, not the absence of them. If you let it define your life, you will slowly disappear into a kind of living death, safe, painless, and utterly hollow. The real tragedy isn't that comfort fails to satisfy. It's that by the time most people realize it, they've already traded away the one thing they truly needed: meaning. Most people live as if death is something that happens to other people. It's not spoken of openly, it's pushed to the margins of conversation, and when it does come close, through illness, loss, or aging, it's treated like a mistake, an intrusion, rather than a central part of the human experience. But to deny death is to deny something even deeper: the urgency and weight of life itself. When you pretend death isn't coming, you postpone action. You live on autopilot, under the illusion that time is abundant and that your chances to act, to love, to change will always be there. Older adults especially face this challenge in a unique way. Many begin to sense time speeding up. The days feel repetitive, yet the years slip by faster. And still, many refuse to look death in the eye. They avoid planning for it, avoid talking about it, and avoid feeling what it means to be this close to the end. That avoidance creates a strange emptiness. Life becomes flatter, less urgent. When you treat death as irrelevant, you begin to treat your time the same way. But death is the great clarifier. It's the boundary that gives everything inside it meaning. You don't love deeply unless you know you could lose. You don't act bravely unless something is at stake. You don't forgive, risk, or speak the truth unless you know the clock is ticking. That's what death gives us, not just an end, but a structure, a context. It demands that we ask, what matters enough to do before I go? What's unfinished? Who do I need to become, not someday, but now? Avoiding this truth leads to a kind of dull drift through time. People fill their lives with small comforts, small distractions, and endless busyness. But underneath it all is fear. Fear of loss, of insignificance, of facing what was wasted. That fear only grows stronger the longer it's ignored. Ironically, it's only by facing death directly that you begin to feel fully alive. You start to see clearly. You stop pretending that anything lasts forever. And that gives your actions a sharpness they didn't have before. Every moment counts, not in theory, but in fact. Accepting death is not about despair. It's about urgency. It's about waking up. It's about refusing to let another year slip by untouched, another relationship remain broken, another part of yourself go undeveloped. To live well, you must live with death in view, not as a threat, but as a teacher. Self-renewal is not reserved for the young. It's not some privilege of people in their 20s with fresh energy and untapped potential. The capacity for change, for reinvention, for becoming more than you were yesterday, that doesn't vanish with age. What does change is how difficult it becomes. The older you get, the more you carry. Habits, assumptions, disappointments, losses. The path forward is less about invention and more about excavation, peeling back layers of defense, regret, and fear to find what's still alive underneath. And despite everything, there's always something there. As long as you're breathing, there's more of you waiting to be discovered. The lie many older adults believe is that they are finished, that their personality is fixed, their story already written, their best years behind them. But that belief isn't a fact, it's a surrender. What people mistake for maturity is often just familiarity with their own patterns. And breaking those patterns is painful. It means disrupting comfort. It means admitting you don't know everything, even after decades of experience. But if you can stomach that humility, self-renewal becomes not only possible, it becomes essential. This renewal doesn't have to be dramatic. It might begin with asking different questions. It might mean picking up a book you once ignored, or revisiting a dream you quietly abandoned. It might mean having hard conversations, rebuilding damaged relationships, or finally telling the truth about who you are and what you've done. Growth at this stage of life isn't about speed or ambition. It's about depth. It's about becoming someone with more integrity, more wisdom, more presence. Renewal also means letting go. Letting go of the parts of your identity that no longer serve you. The roles you clung to, the status you chased, the self-image you protected for decades. Renewal demands you loosen your grip on who you think you're supposed to be and allow something more honest to emerge. That process is hard. It can feel like death, but something stronger is always on the other side. Clarity, freedom, authenticity. What's remarkable is that the older you are, the more powerful this process becomes. A renewed older adult, a person who has lived, failed, lost, and still chooses to grow, is one of the most formidable forces in the world. They're not driven by ego, but by purpose. They don't care about impressing others. They care about becoming whole. And when they change others. Their courage gives permission for everyone around them to do the same. That's the power of renewal, and it never expires. So if you've heard anything today, let it be this. Your story isn't over unless you choose to stop writing it. The mistakes you've made, the years you've lost, the things you didn't do, they don't have to define you. What defines you is what you choose to do now. Will you hide behind comfort, isolation, and regret? Or will you pick up the responsibility of your own life and face the truth with your eyes open? It's not too late. It's never too late. But time is not waiting for you. Stand up, speak honestly, reconnect, begin again. Not someday, now. That is the only path left worth walking. Thank you.